What happens when fostering isn't just about supporting a child, but guiding a parent as well? Kaye Beatty and her husband have been fostering for over 14 years, specializing in parent and child placements. It's emotional, unpredictable, and deeply human work. And today, Kaye shares the powerful lessons, challenges, and rewards that come with helping families at their most vulnerable. If you are caring for someone else, whether paid or unpaid, and no matter how many hours you do it, did you realise that you may be missing out on thousands of pounds of discounts for things that you may use every day? The Able to Care podcast is proud to be sponsored by the UK's #1 carers card. Started by two best friends who recognise that carers deserve better and are 100% committed to helping to change the lives of all carers and bringing them together as a strong community. Carers Card UK provides support, recognition and rewards. It offers reassurance by providing an ID card that helps access emergency information when needed, while also unlocking discounts, a wellbeing hub, a carers circle tool and a community through their app. All of this for less than the price of a box of chocolates a year. There are discounts on gym membership, days out, electrical goods, clothing and even glasses. Let others know you care while taking a little care of yourself with an ID card you can be proud of. Visit carerscarduk.co.uk/promo code/able to care today to order yours. Welcome back to the Able to Care podcast, where we share honest conversations with those making a difference in the lives of others. I'm your host, Andy Baker, and today we're shining a light on a unique and often misunderstood form of foster care, parent and child placements. Our guest is Kaye Beatty, who, along with her husband, has been fostering for over 14 years, currently with the independent fostering service, the Hazel Project. Together, they've supported sibling groups, individual children, and our focus today, parent and child placements. With 7 parent and child placements under their belt, Kaye brings a wealth of insight into what it means to care, not just for a baby or child, but for a parent learning to care themselves. We'll explore how these placements differ from traditional foster care, the emotional highs and lows, and the kind of support carers need to do this work well. Whether you're a foster carer, social worker, or just curious about what goes on behind closed doors in one of the most life-changing types of care, this episode is for you. So hi there, Kaye. Thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
I think this is the first podcast you've ever done. Is that right?
Certainly is, yeah.
It is. So no nerves. I said, this is all edited afterwards. You're going to be fantastic. But it's really appreciated for coming on. Obviously, I've been working with the Hazel Project. Well, once when it was Excel and now it's obviously diversified and gone out with diverse care. And been working on it, I can't remember how many years now, but we've met each other a few times over that time. You've been forced to come on my training sessions at numerous points. And you've always been a kind of an experienced carer on those courses, sharing your insights with others who are new to the foster world. That's one thing I've always noticed about you, Kaye. So thank you so much, and carrying on and maybe doing this on a slightly larger platform. And that's all it is. Yeah. So can you take us back to the beginning? What led you and your husband into fostering?
My husband's a qualified chef, been doing that for 40 odd years. And I'd been working in an office in a banking sector for 13 years. And we had moved house with our own 2 birth children who were in their mid-20s at the time. And it's a lovely big 5-bedroom house, and it has just luck or not luck, within 6 weeks of moving, both my children left home.
Yeah.
So we had this lovely big house with no one to fill it. And I contacted, as you said, it was Excel at the time, just putting some feelers out. We talked about it. It is a very big commitment. It's a 24/7 job. So it doesn't finish at 5 o'clock. And they had someone come round and sat down and chatted to me and Julian, asked questions. They answered questions. We weren't quite ready. We were still umming and ahhing. And they said, get back to us, if you feel that way. And a few months later, my niece and nephew with 2 young children, aged 2 and 4 at the time, were emigrating to Australia. They sold their house quicker than I expected. And I said, we've got loads of room. Come and stay with us. And they moved in for about 5 months. And that was it. We realised we could live with other people. I did predominantly want to do parent and child. That was something I really, really wanted to do. So I got in touch with Excel, who remembered me, spoke to me like I was just talking to them yesterday. And I did say to Emma, who is our safeguarding officer now, at the time, that parent and child was the route we wanted to take. And she suggested we get some fostering under our belt first. That's something our agency liked to do. And I went through the Form F, which was basically, I think, about 4 interviews of 3 hours. They weren't interviews, they were chats. Each lasted 2 to 3 hours, going back as far as you could remember. Some people might say it's intrusive. I found it very cathartic. I enjoyed it. It was lovely remembering things and the stories. We did lots of laughing. There were some tears because it's bringing up things. But it was great. I didn't find any problem with the Form F at all. And it was approximately 4 to 5 months later, we went to panel, which is more scarier than it is. Sounds more scary than it is. Some lovely people there who have some questions for you. Just want to make sure you're the right sort of person for fostering. And well, that's it in a nutshell. I had 3 months notice to work out, which I had given 3 months notice, but I had 2 weeks left by the time we passed panel. And while we had those, that during that 2-week period, we got a phone call for a sibling group of 4. And I just, blew me away really. But we said, yep, we're in this. And the agency gave us some support. Someone was coming around and helping out while I still had to go to work. But I was reduced hours and I was coming home by 2:00 in the afternoon. And we got through it. And I just thought, if that's as bad as it gets, we're going to be good. So, yeah, there you go.
Okay, straight in with a sibling group of 4 straight away. That's how to trial by fire a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what was it that drew you to the kind of the child placement side of things, the child parent placement side of things first?
For me, it was the basic that every child deserves a basic level of care and nurturing. And I think a lot of people have the opportunity to do that. Some have not been taught either by their own parents or for problems that they may have themselves, i.e. learning difficulties but I just felt that I'd raised 2 children of my own, not too shabbily, and I just thought I could pass that knowledge on. I really can't put my finger on why I gravitated towards that more than just child placements. It was really in my gut that I wanted kids to stay with their family, with their parent or parents. And as it happens, our first P&C, that it for short is what we call parent and child, but our first placement was a mum, dad, baby and dog. Yeah.
I think that's it. There's a bit of a misnomer straight away, isn't there, as far as the parent-child placement? It's quite, I know a number of the placements you've had have just been kind of a single mum with a child or baby. But you've also, I say, the first one you had was almost an entire family moving into your household. So
it was, and it can be difficult because it was out of all the 7 placements that I'd done for P&C, that was the only time I'd had a dad. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy having a whole family, and the dynamics were very different. We're lucky enough in our house that we can provide a bedroom and a sitting area and half a kitchen with its own fridge, freezer and everything else. So it's very much a home for them. It's not just a bedroom. But Dad was not really inclined to help raise the child. So it was us trying to put our energies into Mum. But it was tough. It was tough. And it took him more than the mum a long time to trust us. He tended to just stay in his own room and rarely come out. But when he did, he was a lovely chap. He was very nice, and we saw that change. And they were with us for 9 months. and they did get to keep their little girl. And they went on to invite us to her first birthday party, which was very lovely. They've since moved up north, and we don't have any connection with them anymore. But hopefully, they're thriving.
Yeah, oh, it's amazing, and that must give a, even if it's just that first year and seeing that first birthday and still kind of going strong as a family, that still must give huge levels of satisfaction. So how would you say, obviously you have supported children, siblings, and then you've also done these P&C placements. What are the main differences from your more traditional foster care, do you think, with the C&P?
The biggest difference is the adult. They quite often need taking care of themselves. Apart from one where we had a very young mother, it technically it was 2 placements because she was under 18. But other than that, they've all been quite mature, actually. I've had sort of, I think 3 of them were in their early 30s and a couple in their mid-20s. The difference is getting on with that parent, getting to gain their trust, that they know you're there purely with good intentions. They're obviously wary. They're coming into a stranger's home. I mean, that's always a tough one. And not to be their best friend, that's the hardest thing, because as time goes on, you quite often you like these people. You know, they are lovely adult people with children. But you're not there to be their friend. You're there to be their safety net, their teacher, to be someone they can bounce off with ideas. I mean, parent and child fostering is very bespoke, very bespoke. And when they come to you, some parents need teaching for whatever reason. They've maybe not had a child before, and we had one mum come to us, and unfortunately she'd had 3 children prior taken into care, which she wasn't going to keep. They'd gone on to adoption. And this one, she'd been given a chance. We picked her up from the hospital when the baby was 2 days old, and she could not be more grateful. And it was over Christmas. It was lovely. I remember sitting downstairs with this little, at the time, I think she was about 2 months old then, little baby. We had our Santa hats on. It was 4:00 in the morning. And, we let mum stay in bed and sleep a bit later. And she was amazing. She was amazing. She thirsted for learning to keep her child. And we are still in touch with her, and it is lovely, really lovely. We went to her wedding last month. Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think changed for her in that time? Was it the fact that she'd had those children taken off her, that it was that kickstart to kind of go, I can't have another one gone? Or was there something in her life changed? Yeah.
I think it really frightened her. And at the time, there was no choice for her. She was told, you go into the P&C placement, or your child will be
removed.
Put. I don't want to say into care. I don't like that term.
No.
Will be looked after.
Yep.
So she did come to us, and she wasn't sure what to expect, but she very soon realised we are nice people. We're just humans. And, the interaction was great. She loved to cook. So she was in the kitchen with Julian, and they were doing lots of great stuff. And, just introducing her to mum and baby classes, where little ones can bounce around, learn Makaton, do dancing. She had no idea that motherhood could be so much fun. And that was just lovely to see her grow like that. And she's sent many messages saying, if it hadn't been for you, I wouldn't be where I am now.
Have you come across some parents that are they're so set up, or they've got the mentality they're going to fail anyway, that they find it really hard to kind of be able to connect and learn the skills that they need to learn?
Very much, very much. We've had a parent came in with a very young, 18, he wasn't even 18, maybe a 12-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. And she felt that she had been raising them and there was no problems. Her life was very chaotic, so chaotic. And it was really difficult to make her understand that you can go over the top and do too much for your children. She wanted to sort of take them out at 8 in the morning and bring them back at 8 o'clock in the evening and time kind of told us that it was because she was afraid to be left alone with them. She didn't really know how to deal with them and what to do with them. So she'd rather stay out all day doing activities. And she felt that that was the best thing a mum could do. So that was really difficult to try and turn that around. Unfortunately, she doesn't have her children anymore. They are in her family, but with other members of the family. So sometimes you don't get the outcome you really, really want.
As you mentioned, sometimes that's due to things like learning disabilities, intellectual or mental health issues and things like that mum or parents may be experiencing or struggling with. But you said sometimes it's because they've never experienced what good parenting is themselves. So how do you then learn it? And I think that's a misunderstanding from what parenting is. I think there's an expectation sometimes, well, parenting's just natural.
No. And this is the big difference between, decades ago when the only other choice was a mum and baby unit, which is very different. You've got a turnaround of staff. Everything was scheduled, and everything was written down, and the observations were cameras all the time. And we had one of our mums had been in a unit prior to coming to us, and she thinks that that's why it failed. She was the one whose wedding we went to. She thinks that's why it failed when she had her son, and she was in a mum and baby unit. She said, you can't live a normal life. There's cameras everywhere, and they have to write down when you change the nappy, when you feed the baby, when the baby was crying, why was it crying? And it's very unnatural. And I can 100% see why that would not thrive at all. And to explain to her, this is not a unit. This is your home for as long as you're here. And this is how we're going to deal with it. I said, I'm here to help. I'm not here to take over. I'm not here to do everything for you. And that's a big thing as well, because especially when they're newborns, most mums, myself included, want to nurture newborns. I want to sit there. I want to do all the cuddling, and I love all that bit. But that's not the case. It could be, as it has been a couple of times with me, where you have the baby in your own bedroom when they're newborn. And it's a progression. We have a monitor. We don't have a camera monitor, but we have a monitor. When the baby wakes up, I would have to go and knock on mum's door, and we would sit and she would feed the baby, and I wouldn't physically get involved, but I would be awake, make sure she fed the baby, changed the baby, etc. And that may last for 2 weeks or 6 weeks or however long we felt mum needed it. The social worker would be very much involved with that. And bearing in mind, with all of these placements, they've run alongside a parenting assessment, which is normally done by an independent social worker. So the parent is learning that's more school environment. They fill out forms. Can you do this? Can you do that? And then I would be asked, how are they getting on? Are they still changing the nappy unsupervised, or do you have to give them a nudge? So it's a work in progress. And the outcome, of course, is you want them to be able to be confident and comfortable with their child. But as you say, it's not practicalities, and that's the hardest thing. You can teach someone how to make a bottle or how to change the nappy, but it's, do they get on the floor with the rattle and play with the baby? Do they talk in certain tones? And that's tough. I think that's probably, in most of the mums I had, was hard to try and make them understand that the baby may not be hungry. It may be well fed, well dressed and content, but you still need to get that attachment.
That must have been quite a skill for yourself to learn, I should imagine, to some degree. Is it hard to find that balance between keeping a child safe and helping a parent to succeed?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm very lucky that the Hazel Project give us very, very good training, bespoke training for parent and child. And you would have to do that before you took on P&C placements. And there's, you've got a team around you of all sorts of people that you can tap into. And as you know from training sessions, one of our biggest learning curves is from other parents, from other foster parents. Back in the day, there was many times I would phone up another P&C foster parent and say, look, I've got this. How do you think we should go about it? And that's one of the greatest gifts ever, because if it's tried and tested and it works,
Yep.
then we can give it a go. For all the books in the world, which are great, when it comes down to reality, it doesn't always work like that. So, yes, answer to your question. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent there.
No, that's great.
Yes, it is hard to. It's very easy for me to take over if the baby's crying and comfort the child, but that's not teaching mum anything. I had one of our little ones who was 2 at the time, had bad croup. And although I explained to mum it was croup and what I thought we should do about it, she'd never had this before. She was really worried. So we had to go to A&E at 2:00 in the morning, which is fine because that was the right thing for her to do.
Yeah.
And the doctor told her it was croup and that's what we should do. But I was really pleased that she took that decision for us to go. And that's where we want to be. We want to be able to say, you made the right decision. You made the right choice there. Instead of don't keep coming back on me because I probably know the answer, but I want you to come up with that one.
Yeah, that's a great example, isn't it? It's kind of, I suppose, once upon a time, we would have been raising a baby typically in a household with grandparents and things like that around that would have offered that support and advice. But that isn't what society is anymore. Society is you're kind of in the house on your own. You've got to manage independently. But some people aren't ready for that. And therefore, you're almost acting like that kind of surrogate. But it's that distance, isn't it? As you said, you're not friends. I'm here to provide a service, but I've got to push you in the right places, but support you. And do you get, I take it you've had quite a lot of pushback from some parents as well, in the fact that, a lot of resistance, either they perceive you as either too controlling and trying to take over, or they just want to leave it to you. And that must be quite a difficult thing to navigate.
More so, they're leaving it to me. In fact, I had one young mum who left the house and didn't come back for 36 hours, leaving me with the baby.
I mean, that's definitely beyond your good duties a little bit, isn't it?
So yes, you're right. The only pushbacks I had really was from the dad I had in place. And that was my very first P&C, and I learnt from that. And I did tell my agency, I want to do better. I think I can do better. I've learnt from each one. You gather all this information or problems that you may have. And I take that forward each time. And I've had better and better outcomes, and I can see that and I love that. And I think we all have to start somewhere. Of course we do. But I do think when you're a seasoned, especially parent and child, foster parent, it works wonders. I think the same could be said for people that have their own children. We all trumble through a little bit with our first babies. And like you say, we depend on our own family and our own parents to give us advice and help. And normally the mums and parents and child that come to me don't have that support network, or their own parents were not good at parenting. One mum that I said to her about keeping her room clean, that's an ongoing thing, and making the bed, etc. And she said, well, she'd never been shown. Her mum had never shown her how to make a bed. So, there's the practicalities behind it. So we're not just keeping the child safe and helping to raise the child. We are teaching the parent how to keep a clean house, how to look after their own hygiene. If they can't look after themselves and their environment, they're never going to do a good job raising a child either. It all comes hand in hand, really.
Do you think there's any stigma, or do you think the individuals who have come into your household, do you think they've experienced a stigma with being like having to come into parent-child? Would you say is there a stigma around it for them?
Certainly some, not all, definitely not all. Probably more than not. I used to go to a Sure Start Centre with one of my mum and babies, and she was great at socialising, but she would always tell anyone she met that I was her auntie, which is fine, perfectly fine. So, I mean, I've had it with children as well. When I've fostered children, at the school gates, I'm always, my nan's over there. But when I'm at home, it's Kaye, so you go with the flow. And sometimes I've actually said that. I said, listen, you don't have to tell anybody you're in a P&C placement. And more often than not, they would say, oh, I'm just staying with my auntie who's helping out with the newborn until I go home with her or whatever. And that's that in a nutshell, really. That, there's no other problems around that. We did bump into one mum's friends when we were out shopping once, and they said, "Oh, we haven't seen you for ages." And she said, "Oh, yeah, I'm just staying with my nan, and she's helping with the baby." It's fine. I'll just go with that one. I've been called lots of things.
They should be saying sister, surely, not nan.
Oh, yeah, really.
Just drop that in there. I'm never your nan. I'm your mum or your auntie or your... Keep that age bracket down for me. So, obviously, foster care as a whole is incredibly emotional work. Do you think there's any specifics or anything that makes kind of parent and child placements especially intense or complex?
Yeah, very much so. It's as I've said before, it's 24/7 for a start. There's no getting away from it. And 9 times out of 10, when you first have the mum and or dad, but come into place with you, it's quite often for the first 2 months, maybe, you need to be together. So mum can't go out with the baby on her own. You would have to go, and you can't go out and leave mum with the baby. Mum probably could be left on her own if you took the baby out for a couple of hours. So that's really intense, because sometimes you just want to go out and do normal stuff, or, even if it's shopping, and then all of a sudden we've got to trundle everyone up and you've all got to go together. And some mums get a bit frustrated with that as well. But they have to work towards a trust and the fact that they would be okay and safe with the baby. And it normally does come around sort of 2 months. The social worker will have, the 3 of us will sit down and have a conversation, and they'll say, well, how about you go out for 1 hour on your own for the first 2 weeks, and then you take the baby out for an hour to the park. And so it trundles along from there. And some of them have actually then had days where they could go back to a family member for 2 or 3 hours and then come back to me. Right. So you have to get them to a point where they would be fine in the community. It's no good having them safe and happy here in my home and then saying off you go. So, it's a gradual step. And then at the end of the placement, and most of mine have lasted about 9 to 12 months.
Right.
There would be this table written up, and it would take at least 2 to 4 weeks where mum would go home and stay in her home maybe for a few hours, and then built up for 1 day, overnight, a weekend, and so on. And that's, it's all coming to an end then. So I've got plenty of time to understand, they're going to be moving out.
Yeah, of course. Well, I should imagine as, how do you emotionally kind of prepare and cope with situations where either they're moving on or maybe there's been some times as well where you've kind of known this is going to work. How do you kind of prepare for those?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'd probably say at the 7 I've done, 2 babies I've really craved afterwards. And I've sometimes felt I've heard them crying upstairs, or it really, really tugged at my heartstrings. But we won't talk about them because I get emotional.
Oh, no, it's okay. That's okay. I think it's a huge part of foster, isn't it? And I think it's something that it's one of the things that I know that I've spoken to a lot of people, and one of the reasons they wouldn't foster is because they just don't feel they could let the children go. And I've got one of the foster babies that was in my world. I don't have any contact. I don't know where she is now. I'd love to know where she is. I genuinely kind of felt a proper little special connection with her. And that's a hard part of it.
That is really tough. And as I say, I've been lucky that most of the time I've sort of waved them off and they've kept in touch, even if it comes to a stage where it would be less and less and less. So instead of them texting me 2 or 3 times a week, I might get a text a month down the line, and then maybe 2 months after that. And that's okay. I needed that sort of string to get longer and longer. And that's fine. But there will always be children who melt your heart. That's normal. I've been very, very lucky that as soon as my child is gone, I've had another one. I haven't had much chance to think about it.
Yeah.
But, we've got so many fond memories, so many. Then, we look back and sometimes one pops into my head and I go, oh, remember so-and-so, he did this, and we laughed. And sometimes the mums have been amazing. My husband, for all his faults, supports Southampton Football Club. And one of the mum's got her little 4-year-old a Southampton kit. And he came home and she was just all dressed in it. And I mean, it was like, she didn't have to do that, but she knew what that would mean to us. So it's a two-way street. It really is. I think some of them worry about leaving us because this is their home, and they've been comfortable and they felt very safe. So it has been tough. So as much as I need it to be slow, I think they do too. And there's a very good procedure put in place to help both sides for that.
What about the ones that you knew this isn't going to work out for them, and have you had those situations as well?
Yes, only probably two. Mum moved on with her children, and we thought everything would be fine. But a few months later, the children came back into the system without mum.
Yeah.
So yes, it happens.
Yeah.
But they can't live with you forever. They can't. I'm sure they would be fine if they could live under supervision forever and a day, but that's just not reality.
Yeah.
So it does happen. But I think the pinnacle of all of this is to give them that chance to say to them, if you can up your game, if you can do what you need to do, if you can prove to us you can keep your child emotionally well and physically healthy, I think everyone deserves that. But I don't think everyone's capable of it. No,
absolutely. And again, lots of reasons why that might be the case, and none of them are their fault. As far as it, I mean, they're bad people. I've met some, and I've had conversations with some mums that genuinely love their kids. They can't put them first, and they don't know how to be mums, but they want them to do well. They want them to be okay.
You hit the nail on the head, Andy. It's the environmental. The main problem I felt, and social workers have told me this, is not putting their child first.
Yeah.
I'd say that's probably the number one problem.
Yeah.
And if they can turn that around and realise there is a better life out there with not having certain people in it.
Have you ever encountered an adult or child's behaviour that has felt difficult, overwhelming, or challenging? Have you sometimes felt at a loss of what to do, or know that you didn't handle it quite right? People are complex and unpredictable, and their behaviour can be like the weather. We've all made the mistake of looking out the window and feeling safe to wear shorts, but 5 minutes later wishing for an umbrella. What if, like a weatherman, you understood how humidity, temperature and pressure all come together to cause the weather, allowing you to better prepare, predict and respond, and prevent ever having a picnic ruined by a thunderstorm ever again? My book, called Targeting the Positive with Behaviours that Challenge, helps you to become the weatherman of behaviour. It provides you with a toolkit to increase competency, confidence, resilience and empathy, so you feel more assured about how to respond to distressed or dysregulated behaviours in others, including those affected by trauma, mental health, neurodiversity, learning disabilities or dementia. Build better connections, achieve de-escalation and improve outcomes for yourself and those you engage with my celebrated 6-stage target model, a step-by-step process to reduce distress for everyone. Discover my empowering, person-centered guide in Targeting the Positive, written by me, Andy Baker, available from online bookstores worldwide. Find a link in the description and order today. Have you found there's been moments where you questioned whether you could actually keep doing it? And what's kept you going in those moments?
Yes. Yeah, I'd lie if there weren't times. I'm very lucky that Julian is also a full-time foster parent. So we do this together. In fact, he's taken our 2 foster children out at the moment so that I can have the peace to do this. And we do bounce off each other, 100%. we both know when we've come to the state where we need downtime. I am in awe of single parents. I don't understand how they can even do this. I think it's amazing. But yeah, we all have burnouts. Of course we do. You know, we have long periods of time where our time and our emotions are depended on and expected to be full on, and it does get hard, very hard.
Yeah, and you've already kind of alluded to that a little bit as far as, you know, one of the things that you mentioned as far as helping you to overcome some of the difficult times has been conversations with other experienced foster parents and on training courses or on, I know you run some support groups and things like that within your, within the Hazel projects and stuff, getting that dialogue out there, hey, you're not alone in this, you know.
Yeah, very much so. We've had foster parents who want to progress to P&C, and the agency would say to me, can you get in touch with so-and-so and, you know, give them the ins and the outs. They much prefer an experienced foster parent to talk to them rather than someone from the agency who's not on the ground shop floor, so to speak. And you get the nitty-gritties and the good and the bad. And I've been very, very lucky, Andy, really lucky. I've had some lovely placements. Out of the 7 P&C, I've had one that didn't work well with me. But the other 6 were fine, and I've had lovely outcomes, and I've been very proud of the work we've done. And I think out of those 6, I think 4 have gone on to raise their children, and I know 2 of them have had more children since, and they've been at home and kept those children. So that's the best news ever, really.
That was a nice way you put that, actually, the fact that it didn't work out with you and your family. I think that's a really hard thing for any foster parent. I always kind of say, you know, if I had a room full of 100 people, more than likely at least 2 of them I wouldn't get on with, and 2 of them wouldn't get on with me, and it could be different. But when you're a foster parent, statistically, you could just get those 2. It's just the other. If you had other 98, and so sometimes it isn't going to work out. The dynamics, the culture are too different. They can't accept you. They just can't build trust. But that must be so difficult to be able to be aware of that and recognize it's nothing personal. It's not because I'm not good enough. It's just this isn't quite a good fit, or they're not ready for me, or whatever it is.
That's exactly right. I've learned, it's taken me years, really. When you hear that a placement breaks down, I've never really understood it. If the child, I mean, I'm talking in terms of child placements now rather than P&C, but I don't know. You know, the child's not particularly naughty, or they're manageable. I don't understand what happens there. But I actually did have that a couple of years ago. I mean, it broke my heart, absolutely broke my heart. But I am in touch with the young person, and they text me quite often, and we've seen them since, and they miss us and we miss them, but it had just come to fruition. You know, we had done everything we can for them, and it was time for them to move on to someone else who could give them a different set of skills or go forward with whatever their thinking was. And breaking down doesn't mean that you don't like each other anymore, or that you hate living there, or anything like that. It's not at all like that. There's many reasons. And I really feel good that this placement needed to end. And I can live with that. I didn't let them down. And it didn't end because they were bad or anything like that. I mean, you know, they've still got a big part of me. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so many people who'd be listening to this that might find that really, really inspiring and maybe feel slightly connected with that, because it's something I've come across many, many times across all the different agencies. It's that I always try and go, it's not because you can't, it's just too difficult, or it doesn't quite work. Or I love the way you put that, though. The skills, they needed to learn a different set of skills from a different placement or care. I think that's a really, really nice way of looking at it. But as you said, that's experience and self-reflection and a journey. Absolutely.
I don't think, if I didn't have the experience I had, I don't think I would have seen it. I don't think I would have unpicked it and said, this has come to an end for us. I would have just trundled along and tried my best, and that could have really been detrimental. So we all needed to understand what was happening.
So obviously we talked there a little bit about maybe there has been times you've been close to walking away, but you've already kind of maybe, again, mentioned a few. But on the flip side, what were some of the most rewarding moments you've experienced within parent-child placements?
Oh, if I say this, I'm going to start crying.
It's all right. Stephen Bartlett manages to make a lot of money by making his guests cry. So it's podcast gold if I can get that.
There's so many things. My goodness. I mean, mums keeping in touch with us has been brilliant because they send us photos of this little one who came to us at 2 days old. We've got one of the children that we used to look after is 13 years old now. It's just amazing. And her mum said to us, would you mind keeping in her life as part of her life, because you're all she knew before, without me. And that's just great, just being part of that is amazing. One other mum who doesn't have her mum has her children out on a special guardianship, and her mum keeps in touch with us, just to let us know how the children are doing. I think in P&C, you're more likely to know where, because if the children are lucky enough to stay with, well, not lucky, if they do stay with their parents, you're more likely to hear how they're doing because the parents have already got that relationship with you. Whereas when it's a child that moves on, as you say, you lose that down the line. Yeah. It'd be great if they all pop up when they're 18 years old and say, thanks, do you remember me when I was 6? But with the parent, they're the one that's keeping in touch. It's not so easy if a child moves on to another foster family. Quite often the foster family may or may not want to keep in touch, but I'm with an agency. I'm with the Hazel Project. So if that child goes back into the local authority, it may go to a local authority carer or someone else. And in that case, I wouldn't have any chance of knowing what was happening.
Yeah. And in adoption as well, sometimes they're not always keen on kind of that as a reminder and stuff, are they? So yeah. Again, you've maybe already mentioned this a little bit, but I think it was nice to hear that. Have you seen some parents grow in ways that surprised and inspired you? And can you think of an example? Yeah.
Yes. One in particular came to us with her 12-year-old son, who had some issues that she just couldn't cope with. He struggled to manage his emotions. She also had a 4-month-old daughter who was with another foster parent who only looked after babies, but that was local authority. I didn't know them. And she came to us with her son and had only been here a week, maybe 2 weeks. And I just gave her some tips on how to deal with his anger issues and other. He didn't like going to school, and we got him into school, and he was staying there all day, which was a huge thing that we overcame. And she was very, very, very surprised that it didn't take forever. She thought no one would be able to cope with his outbursts. And I did it with her. So one night, he was very angry and he was going upstairs and banging the wall and everything else. And she was going to go up there and start arguing with him, which is what she normally did. I said, no, let's just stay here. I know this is hard, but just sit here, blah, blah, blah. 10 minutes later, he came down and he sat next to her and started watching TV. And he'd never done that before. And something so, so simple meant that she could then commit. She said, okay, I know now. I know why I'm here. And I know this can work. And a month later, we had her 4-month-old daughter join us because I think they wanted to see her parent, her 12-year-old, before they could give her the 4-year-old to put in the mix, because then you're talking about lots of other baby stuff going on. So by then, her son was in school every day, not a problem. I'm not saying he was, the perfect child, but whatever his his foibles were, Mum could deal with it. And that was a massive thing. So, and then Mum absolutely changed 180. She lost 2 stone in weight. She gave up smoking. She started saving her money. She was cooking with Julian every day. She loved cooking. She would do all a Sunday roast all by herself. I mean, she is our biggest goal since I have been fostering. To know that we changed that person as an adult, as well as her be capable to look after her children. And she went home and with her partner, we got to know the partner quite well, because when we took her to have family time with the children and their dad, we got to know Dad relatively well. And they moved into a house together and they kept in touch, and we saw them afterwards. And I always said to her, you're our biggest success. You as a grown-up, as an adult, you are our biggest success. You got it. You really got on board with it and you ran with it and you did. She said, it was there for the taking. And I just thought, I'm going to do the best I can. And I said, you went well above and beyond. And, now they've got their other, they had another one. He'll be about 2 now. But, so they're a family of 3.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh, that's an amazing story. And I say it's sometimes that pulling that person out of feeling, getting that stuck in the I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I can't cope. Just that little bit of inspiration, that little bit of guidance took her out of that learned helplessness into by the sounds of it, she managed to thrive from that little bit of, you can do this. And maybe that's all she needed for one day.
And we loved seeing it. We loved it. Every day, seeing that change was just immense. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Beautiful. So you've gone through quite a journey, and obviously you've learned so much in the time you've been doing it. What do you think makes a good parent and child foster carer?
The practicalities. We've been lucky enough, as I say, to have a home that had, a bedroom with another room attached to it, so they were able to use it as their own sitting room. I mean, we still call it a toy room, a playroom. And to have the space for them to cook. So we got 2 microwaves, 2 fridges, 2 freezers and that sort of thing. So, and that's very difficult because Julian wants to cook for everyone. And I, to try and tell him, it's really hard. So from the practical side, that's kind of what you need. But from a nurturing side, like I said in the beginning, it's as important to me to teach the parent as it is the child. And I like to see the difference a lot. I can't explain how different it is. When you have a child, you're raising a child to the best of your ability. You understand it needs nurturing and it needs all the practical things. But when you've got an adult who's come to your house in their own little bubble, and you somehow have to infiltrate that bubble and say, well, there are other things you should be doing. It's really tangible. You can see a lot of mums like to stay in bed most of the day. They'll keep the child in the bedroom with them, and to try and explain that that's really unhealthy. They need to have the curtains opened. We need to get fresh air. And I like it. I like the challenge. And I like the results.
It's almost kind of, I suppose, a coaching role, isn't it? In some ways, that you're kind of coaching the parents at the same time as helping them to raise a child. It is that almost level 2 parenting, I suppose, isn't it? As far as
the hardest thing is to actually get to know that you can't force anything. You can't be too full on because they'll just back away. It's getting that real level of knowing that I'm doing it for the right reasons and in a friendly way and in a good way. And this could be fun. It's not an awful onerous task. It's doing it the right way. And that's probably the hardest thing to get right, to just understand, to get mum and or dad on board. That's the hardest thing. Raising the child, for me, that's easy. It comes naturally for me. But unless I can get the parent on side, they're not going to listen to me. They're not going to follow my way. So, that's the toughest bit.
And I like that you mentioned it early on as well, but you said it again there a little bit, that, the parenting should be fun. and you should enjoy the process of parenting. But I don't think that's how a lot of people feel or recognize that maybe parenting should be promoted as in sometimes.
Absolutely. We're encouraged to do a lot of the, when the Sure Start groups were open prior to COVID, there was a lot of things that went on. And it was amazing actually, because it wasn't when I was raising my children 35, 40 years ago. But now there's a lot out there. There's an awful lot out there. Our remuneration allows us to do these things. We do, I think we earn a very good salary for the job we do. And it's lovely to be able to say, let's go here, let's do that. And actually all the mums I had no idea that these things existed. And yes, some of them are paid. I love Maccaton for babies. I think that's a great little class. So that, yes, there will be things that mums wouldn't normally have done. But there is a lot of community baby skills classes. As I say, Sure Start were absolutely brilliant. And you could take them once a month for the baby weigh-ins and everything. And, just meeting other mums is one of the best things ever. So, yeah, taking the kids out and it actually being fun. And me sitting back, because I'm only nan or mum, auntie, I can sit back and I can watch that mum engage with their children and other mums and their children. And that's lovely. You're opening up this whole, there's life out there for you mums and babies, and there's lots of single mums out there too. So yeah. I think they do worry about that. And to try and tell them you're not alone. You're really not alone.
That part of your job, I suppose, is holding a hand to introduce them to a different community they maybe didn't know was there as well, to kind of feel a bit more connected.
Healthy communities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Other role models and things like that are showing how to interact with children and how to, that's a big part of it, I suppose, because it's not all on you at that point as well.
No, that's nice. And again, the progression would be, well, we've been going to this club on a Tuesday morning now. We've been doing it for 4 weeks and I've come with you. Now I would like you to go with baby. Some of the people there. I want you to go there and enjoy yourself. And again, it's just putting it out there and letting them know they can do it. They have to be able to do it on their own before they leave here.
I love that. So you said that you get some specific training, but what kind of support or training do you think is essential for carers doing this kind of work?
Well, our agency, like P&C parents, to have had some form of fostering under their belt, normally about a year of fostering, unless you come to the agency with some specific skill set, like having worked in a baby, mother and baby unit, or raising maybe adults who've got learning difficulties. So it's a plethora of skills, obviously. And I don't know when it was. Let me just look at my board. 2012, I'd been fostering children just over a year before I took on our first parent and child. And I guess the agency must have known, we were in it. Well, I'd already told them from the beginning that's what we wanted to do, but they must have felt we would be fine to do that. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it. Yeah. It is very much... It's 24/7. I can't stress how much, and more on me than Julian, because the female's normally the more nurturing. So I was the one that obviously would sit with mum when the baby was being fed at night and so on. Julian's more the fun parent. He teaches the cooking skills and the, let's go out and do this. And
one thing I have noticed about you, Kaye, as well, I think every time I've delivered a training session for Hazel Project, and I've been delivering for years, you're always on them. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing, just so you know. It's okay. Oh, Kaye's on it again. But I think that's really important. I think you see the value of continual professional development and that you don't know it all. There's always a new nugget. And I think last time you came on a course with me, you kind of said, even though I've done this course before, there was just a few little nuggets in there, a few little reminders of things and some good connections with other people in the room and stuff like that as well. So
yeah, for me, it's the reoccurring. I don't have the memory I used to have. And sometimes coming onto a training course again, I sometimes then know the answers and I go, well, that's good. That stuck with me, that one has. Or you can say something and I go, yes, I know this. And it just makes me feel empowered that I have done the right thing, that this is something I have been doing. And as we've said before, there are other, there's quite often about a dozen of us, I suppose, on these training courses, and everyone's got stories and everyone's got advice. And, you go away every time, as far as I'm concerned, with a little nugget. And that's what makes you a good carer in my eyes,
It's definitely a journey. It's not a destination, is it? As far as caring is concerned,
there's no. We're dealing with human lives, so nothing's ever going to be the same. It's not mathematical. Nothing is ever the same. And that's what I like about it. That we don't know what tomorrow's got in store, really. I've been down a soft play area for 3 hours this morning already.
Hopefully with the kids, who just on your own, Kaye.
Yeah.
I'm going out, love.
Yeah.
You're the kids. I'll go to that soft play again. Found my happy place. I like.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, do you know what? It's absolutely lovely to hear your story. And I can tell there's still, 14 years in, you're still highly passionate about it, sharing your experiences and still doing it, So you've got 2 children in your home at the moment.
Yeah. I've got a young lad on permanency. He's,
right.
He'll be 16 next weekend. Yep. And he's lovely. He's just part of us. Yeah. And we've got a 9-year-old on respite with us for a fortnight.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah.
Keeping you young.
Yeah. But I never used to be grey.
No. Well, it's been so amazing to talk to you, Kaye. Thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story and your insights. And hopefully, anybody watching this, please, reach out to the Hazel Project if you're interested in looking into fostering. You think you've got space in your home and your heart to share with some other people. But follow some of Kaye's advice there if it's an area that you're looking to kind of get into as far as parent-child. I think parent-child, there should be more of it. I think I've definitely had we came across some babies where I think there could have been a real opportunity for a parent-child placement to have kept mum and baby together, and that wasn't taken. So I don't know if there's a lack of resources or promotion of that, but I definitely think there's more room for it. Anybody listening to the episode, if you found any of the content useful and enjoyable, please like, comment and share. And thank you very much again, Kaye.